Detours, brought to you by Sports and Spokes, the magazine for wheelchair sports and recreation. In this year's Boston Marathon, Eden Rainbow Cooper took the field in a shocking win. I think not only did she shock the world, but she shocked herself. Eden, I'm just, I was astounded. I think we all were as we sat there and we watched on TV, expecting Manuela Schär or somebody else. And here's this 22-year-old girl at the time who annihilates the course and wins the race. How the heck did you do that?
I think a lot of bravery down that first hill for sure. Obviously there's the hard work and training. But just on that day, I got on that start line and I felt good. And the only option was to go for it, from the gun, go for it. I know all the women's are so strong at the moment and they're all super strong climbers. So, the original plan was just try and sort of get a bit of a gap and make them work to get back up to me. And then, that gap sort of stayed. It was crazy.
I found a pretty interesting quote, and I think it's pretty applicable. You said, "I just came here to finish and have fun, and I can't believe it." Well, not only did you do that, but you set the fifth fastest time on the course in 1:35:11. I mean, that's really pretty astounding. Do you have any concept of exactly what it was that you accomplished that day?
I think it was... now I sort of have a better understanding of it, but at the time, it's Boston and we go straight into London sort of 6 days later. And to be honest, up until maybe a couple of weeks ago, I've just been so shocked by it that it hadn't really sunk in. And then I find it's only when I sort of come back home and into sort of my normal social group with my family and my friends and stuff that it really sinks in, because I always say that in sport, you're surrounded by excellence all the time. So it's like, oh, I won the Boston Marathon, that's great, but sat next to me, are world record holders and people who have been winning things since before I was born. But yeah, now it's definitely sunk in, and it's just, it really is incredible to me. And yeah, there's not really much else to say about it. It's just absolutely incredible.
Well, being a pretty big fan of the sport and following it for so many years, I've had, 40 years between racing and commentating. I noticed a style that everybody has. And ironically, I kind of compared your style to two of the greats of all time, Franz Nietlischbach, who won it 5 times, Ernst van Dijk, who won it 10 times. You are a fabulous coaster. You get away going downhill. And there's this little saying in the sport, out of sight, out of mind. Did you have any idea that you were, basically duplicating the concept and the technique of two of the greatest racers of all time?
No, to be honest, at the time I didn't really think about that, but I've sort of, growing up watching the sport, I'd seen Ernst sort of do that kind of thing and just really, really book it down those big hills. And that you almost don't have that much control over it. You're going so fast that, for me at least, I know if I touch my brake, it could be super dangerous. So yeah, for me, it was just tuck in. I know that I'm a good coaster and I like going fast downhill. It gives me an adrenaline rush. So I really like it, as I'm sure like quite a few people do. But yeah, being able to do that and sort of having a course that suits those needs for me it's really good. It's really helpful, obviously.
So as the race went on, the expectation kind of had to be in some way, I wonder when Manuela Schär from Switzerland, when is she coming back? Because it's not as though she's going to suddenly just give up the ship. I mean, yeah, you got away in the early running, but she's going to make a run for you. Did you even expect that she would not even get that close to you during the race?
Absolutely not. Going into the race, it was always try and open up a gap, because she probably will close it. Manuela is such an exceptional athlete, and so experienced that it was like, yeah, okay, maybe she won't catch me up in the 5K, but I was thinking around 10K, she would definitely have caught me up. And at probably 15K, she would have been able to go past me. So there was always the thought in the back of my mind, she's going to come up, she's going to come up, she's going to come up. And honestly, even towards sort of that final turn onto Boylston, I think there was maybe like a hand cycle behind me, or there was something behind me. And I looked back and I saw white, which was the same color Manuela was wearing. And I was like, I'm going to have pushed 26 miles and get caught in the last point two. But yeah, that was always on the forefront of my mind, sort of you try and focus on your own race. And obviously I was trying to go, okay, just stay relaxed and stay calm and push and be strong. But in the back of my mind, I was like, she is coming for me and I know she's going to be coming hard.
We'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Sports and Spokes Magazine. For nearly 50 years, they've produced stories on iconic athletes performing at the top of their game, given generational coverage of sports dating back to the 1970s, and they've shown the way with exciting and timeless magazine cover shots. To stay on top of all the latest news from the world of high-performance adaptive sports, go to sportsandspokes.com. Sports and Spokes, the magazine for wheelchair sports and recreation. It's a highly technical course in so many ways. The early rolling hills, you get away. Then you got the flat zones. Then once you get comfortable into that pace, you got another area where you're going down. Then you go up the Heartbreak and across the brownstones. There's so many complexities and technicalities to that course. Did you have an expectation going in? Did you study the course and have a notion of what it was you were coming up against?
Yeah, so this was my second Boston. So I was lucky enough to get invited last year, and it was the worst marathon I had ever done last year. I did not perform well.
In what way?
Just in a sense of my body didn't feel in shape when I got there. I think the time was about half an hour slower than what I did this year. It was over 2 hours. I was 26 minutes back from Susanna, who won it last year. So I knew how hard this course was coming into it. And that was why I said I just came here to finish and have fun, because there were points last year where I really didn't think I would finish. And the aim was to just have a better race than last year. And that was really the thing in my mind, like, just try and have a better race, have a better race. And I knew how much Heartbreak Hill hurt now. People say that's a hard hill, like it really does hurt. But last year I wasn't prepared for it at all. So coming into it this year, my coach and I worked on, let's get up, let's find the hardest hill that I can train on and push up it as many times as I can. And that made such a difference in my performance.
I think that we can sit here and probably talk about that course all day long because, we both know it intimately. It's a toughie, and there's nothing to be denied about exactly how rough it is to try and win on that course. Roads can be unpredictable from year to year, but nonetheless, Boston is a huge race to win, maybe the biggest race, in my opinion. It puts a gigantic bullseye on your back. Do you feel any psychological concern about that? Because now when you toe the line, no longer is it going to be, hey, who's that girl over there? They're going to know you were the Boston Marathon winner. So what do you feel about that psychologically?
I think I maybe have a different perspective on it than what people would assume. I know, especially going into London, I went into London going, okay, I just won the Boston Marathon, so maybe there is that pressure on my back. But I tried to change the narrative and say, actually, I know what I'm capable of, and I'm trying not to let sort of one race now or in the future or whatever, I'm trying not let that one thing define me. There's definitely a target on my back. People, my competitors, they know that I'm fast and they know that I'm capable of doing good things, and sometimes even beating them. But I try and look at it that every race I go into, I want to do my best race, and that's going to look different on every course, every day, all the time. Marathons are so completely unpredictable. And when I first started them, one of my close friends, John Boy, he said, you never know what's going to happen on the day of a marathon. You can never go into it with an expectation or anything. You can just go and put your best foot forward. So that's the mindset that I try and keep always.
Well, not only did you win Boston, but you're also the Great Britain marathon record holder and the 5,000 meters. So you have skill as it comes up into those longer distances. What would be the shortest distance we might expect to see you in? 1,500, 800? How far down would you want to go?
sort of a competitive level, the 1500 for sure would be the lowest. I don't get off the line very quick, so I have to work really, really hard to get back into a pack, and sometimes that doesn't happen. So the 1500, it gives me a little bit more time to sort of get back into that pack and relax and recover a little bit again before that sprint finish. So yeah, the 1500, 5000, and then anything on the road, pretty much those are what I'll be competing in, hopefully.
Talk about a couple of the GB legends. I know you have ties to David Weir, 6-time Paralympic gold medalist. I could go on and on about David because he's got a stack of medals this high. But, we'll just go ahead and go with the 6 gold. And Tanny Gray Thompson, who historically has done so much for the sport. Talk a little bit about the country people that have influenced you and maybe even pushed you forward into the sport.
Yeah, so I started wheelchair racing with David at his academy, the Weir Archer Academy. So I have been beyond blessed to spend the first 10 years of my career training with Dave, and having such just a force, to sort of teach me how to push and what to do. And especially once I figured that the longer distance stuff were more for me, Dave gave me more knowledge than, to be honest, I probably even remember. And as well, Tanny, again, someone who, like Dave, could do all distances, but then really, really thrived sort of coming into some of the longer stuff. I think in the UK, there are so many just incredible athletes. And for me to be able to be associated with some of them, it gives me a lot of joy and a lot of pride to know them.
When last we chatted, you had suggested you hadn't quite made the Paralympic team, or you weren't hadn't been accepted yet. Have you made the Paralympic team since we spoke last?
Not yet. So the round of selection that I'll go in for the marathon is in a couple weeks' time. So hopefully, I believe it's about the 22nd of July. So the rest of the team, mostly the athletics team, will find out then. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. We've done everything we can. Qualification ended about a month ago. So yeah, now it's just sort of holding tight and training like usual.
If you had your dream goal, the events you would want to specialize in, and what would they be?
1500, 5000, a marathon for sure. Those three for me are the big ones. The 1500 has always, growing up, for me, sort of been the pinnacle of wheelchair racing. You had every single big name in a 1500, the sprinters, the long distance guys. And then obviously I just have a deep rooted love for the 5K and the marathon.
Well, it's not like it would be, necessarily negating anybody else going into the Paralympics, but expectations, would you expect to come out with at least a podium finish somewhere?
I think that's really hard. At the moment, we're going into, for the women at least, the strongest field that we have ever seen. Talking
Agreed.
to the other girls, like, we really, really have no idea what could happen. We have world record holders.
You have Scaroni and De Bruyne and Shar and Di Rosario.
Rosario, there's so many strong girls, and even more coming up and showing up every other week, pretty much. So I think for anyone to get a medal at these games in any event, it's going to be not luck, but it's going to be definitely fighting it out on the day. There are no clear winners at the moment.
I like to really thank you because I think that right now I'm interviewing a future superstar. So, hey, keep up the great work. That Boston one was huge. I fully expect that you're going to have great things on your horizon. Thanks, Eve.
Thanks so much.